So this is a story about an artificial farm. It's called Secret Gardens. And yeah, I think it's pretty bizarre. You have these huge, huge mushrooms, which I find very interesting. You know, I'm not one to talk about and really explain paintings. I mean, let me just say that, and I made that very clear, because I think that painting itself is a vocabulary. In the same way I'm speaking to you now, I'm using tones and vocabulary. The painting uses imagery, impact, and color. So, you know, adding too many words to a painting almost takes away from its vocabulary. It's almost like as if I was speaking French and you were a Frenchman, I would add Chinese. It wouldn't make any sense. You know, I think I might have said that before somewhere.
No, but it's interesting the pushing that you had in the beginning, just that.
Right.
The idea, the first idea, not about really the meaning. There are also many meaning here that are hidden, and it's better that they're allowed to
breathe,
out.
That they're allowed to breathe, and that the viewer becomes engaged. You know, this is the whole thing. I think with painting is, and this I think is very important, is that painting is not here to dictate to you what to think or say. I mean, it's there for you to be engaged and to think on your own. You know, so this is, and I hope, and that's why in many of my paintings you'll see a very gestural language. It's not specific, it is not realistic in the sense, although you have abstract elements that become sort of merge between realism and abstraction, but it's all very vague, and it runs a line between sort of an ambiguity of both. You're not really sure which way to go, and I think the mind digests that completely differently, and it gives you an opportunity to really not only pay attention to the painting, but just to search and find, you know, something new.
Okay, we go.
This one here is, of course, one of my personal favorite paintings too, of the ones I've done over the last decade. This is called Creeping Obstacles in Kansas, and I did this one long before people, I think, I did this one during the Obama administration in 2000, I think it was Obama administration, 2010. And of course, before, you know, long before our current administration and things, there's always a sense, America has had a very strong sense of not only danger, but fear. There's been an incredible amount of fear being, for one, promoted by largely mainstream media and magnified and so forth. But the general population has a sense of fear constantly, just under the realm of the guise of the labels of terrorism, for example, which of course is just a name. It's just a label, but it has an enormous impact on the population and their psychology. In fact, it's not bound to anybody in particular, but it's a tactic. And to me, I've always seen it more as psychological warfare, if you ask me. But anyway, this is a painting that I did. Obviously, it could be, it resembles Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, but it could be simply a girl that's there in a skirt, and obviously she has a mask. There's some kind of danger. You're not sure if something just happened, or you're not sure if she's living in her own dream. You know, it's not very clear. But you get the sense that there's something also about to happen in addition to what already occurred. You know, you got, like, for example, this stick here. I don't know if that's really, you know, sort of like, you know, burning as if it's, you know, almost going to blow or something. You know? So I did this, and this was, to me, kind of like a warning sign a little bit. This was already in 2010, because obviously, you know, our country has taken a very stark direction in a downslide hill, as far as I'm concerned, since September 11th. And whether intentionally or not intentionally, that's what's been happening. And so, you know, much of that is my inspiration for a lot of the work. Mm-hmm. This one here is War and Resistance. I did this one in, I forget the date sometimes. This one is in 2015, right? And, you know, here again, war was a topic. You know, I kind of see it, I saw it personally, I still see it as sort of almost like you're not sure if it's a playground or a sandbox, or if it's actually a real scene. It's probably all the above. And, you know, I like playing with the ideas of, obviously, I mean, you know, we're seeing bombed out areas all over the world, in particular in the Middle East, unfortunately, most of which the West is at least partially responsible for, whether it's the United States or other Western countries and so forth. So we're engaged in warfare constantly. The military-industrial complex seems to really engaging in warfare, not just for profit, but simply also for territorial engagement. Yeah.
It's nice the fact that it's black and white with blue, light blue,
Right.
and suddenly there's something very colorful, like what is a toy? It's like a toy.
Yes.
It's a little car.
Yeah, the only thing colorful really in it are the two innocent aspects, which is the small flowers.
Yes.
And the toy, actually, which is, could be a toy of a boy or of a child or something. And the rest is sort of more in dark elements. I mean, obviously it could be Palestine, it could be after World War II, it could be Iraq, it could be many places in the world. So it is not, it's not specific.
It's a war scenery.
It's a war scenery, of course,
Yes,
but it also sort of plays with the idea, it's almost sarcasm, that we're treating war environments and war areas as little sandboxes to play in. So it's kind of, all my work has more or less a little sarcasm to it. Yeah. So, I did this one 2015. I really like this one too. It came out pretty good. Then, this one is a recent painting actually. I did this one. It's called Santa Brings Gifts.
Oh, okay. I had the idea there was Santa Claus.
Yeah. This is Santa Claus, and sort of, I guess playing with Western ideology. We go to war with countries, and then shortly after we bring the sugar in. And I just took Santa Claus as sort of a Western iconic figure to sort of represent that against and clash it against this sort of wreckage. Something that either happened or you're not really sure what it is. Kind of interesting. And the ball, the figure that the ball is something I generally use has become more compositional nature, but it's, to me it represents a little bit of an innocence or playfulness in the works.
Yes.
And these are also fairly new ones, 2017. These were shown at Weinstein Gallery in San Francisco. My dealer's out there. And this is a new series that I actually did, which was also slightly different. If you see, considering this is a 2017, the Creeping Obstacles and Canvas is 2010. If you look at the difference, there's more gestural elements here. There's very abstract elements here.
There's a figure with
there's a dark figure in the background. He looks like a businessman or has some kind of briefcase. The idea that
and this one is pointing something.
He's pointing something, he's showing it something, but he's also seems to be a businessman, or at least somebody with a tie that's hanging kind of like onto the side of him. So the constant commentary of business and warfare, or business and catastrophes that are happening, are connected in most of my paintings, I would say. So you have landscapes connected with sort of business exploiting. Then this one, which is I also like a lot. This one I did also 2017. It was last year, and I did this one shortly after Irma and the flood. So this was something I think more inspired by what happened to me personally in Florida in terms of the flood, or not even so much to me, but to many other people, and the constant weather changes that we're seeing, of course, on a not just a local basis, but on a global basis. And why they are happening, we're not quite sure. But they're obviously happening. There's shifts in things. So this was kind of that. But even here, in most of the paintings, you will see, and I've heard that before. You do see a sense of, there is a sense of hope in things.
Yes, this is a hope, because you can save yourself.
You save yourself.
With that.
So there's a gesture of, okay, well, listen, she could grab that. She also has these big, what do you call it, sort of air. That you put to be able to swim. So that's that's something she also has. So there is an option for her to be saved. I mean, they never. I wouldn't say that either one of the paintings has a character that's completely annihilated. There's usually some sense of out, or some suggestion of there's a way for the character to move out, or there's some kind of hope, which is of course important for us to have. Right? This is when the Cowboys came. When the Cowboys came.
Oh, here, in fact.
2012, the Cowboys. Yep.
Yeah.
And this is little ironic and also sarcastic. You know, a lot of people looked at the painting and said, "Oh, is this like September 11th?" Or, of course, it's not anything, you know, particular. This is really more sort of. It could be anywhere. You know, it could be Iraq, it could be Syria, it could be a war zone, it could be anything. But you always have these innocent people that are sort of playing in the midst of, you know, these cowboys that obviously could be representational of any nation or any kind of imperialist action.
Yeah, there are this kind of scratch, as like, or they can be also some nails, some.
Yeah. And these are all gestural things. I mean, I would say most of my work, you know, generally speaking, speaks or works with. People call them accidents, but I don't believe in accidents because there is no such thing as an accident. Because an accident would mean that you have some kind of preconceived notion of how something is supposed to be. And so if it's not, then it's an accident. But I don't work with any preconceived notions. So for me, anything can be information. So even if it's just something that wouldn't fit your normal idea, it's important that I think we acknowledge what some people might call mistakes as something that's a new possibility. And it suggests something new. This is very important. And that's, I think, that rails against sort of the academic practices that certain things have to be regimented in certain ways, which I never liked much. So you know, this is really, I think, one of the primary paintings of that, because it really rails against, even though you have your abstract elements that become almost figurative, but it's still very vague and very ambiguous, gestural.